Happy Wednesday, everybody. This is Beth Cooper back with another installment of some objects you'll find at the beach. Yesterday, I stopped before I erased. I totally forgot to erase. So I know that my ink is certainly dry by now. I'm going to go ahead and erase all of those elements, all of those guidelines that we used to get us to that point that we don't need anymore. And I'm using my kneaded eraser this time. Hopefully there won't be as many dust particles to deal with. This paper is interesting. Now, we have not done any color or value yet, and I haven't talked about that yet. You certainly, when we finish with this project and you have an entire piece on the opposite page, you can color it like a coloring page. You can use color pencils or markers or anything that you're interested in doing. But I'm thinking about doing a value lesson using the drawings that we make on YouTube. So if you're interested in seeing that, please let me know and I will continue that, and we can actually learn how to shade, because we're out at the beach. There's a bright sunshine and there's going to be shadows and there's going to be highlights. And if you'd like things to look even more three-dimensional than we're making them here, we can certainly do that. Today we're going to work on a couple of more objects that we find at the beach. We're going to do a beach pail and a shovel. We're going to do a sailboat, and we're going to do a kite. So some different shapes to work with today. Remember, we start with our shapes and then we add the details, and when we're comfortable with it, then we can go ahead and use the ink pen and then we clean them up. And we'll color it all later when we get to our final design, our final picture. Okay? Make sure this is all in line. All right, so for today, let's see, the pail. If you were to look at a bucket from the side, it would look just sort of like, sort of like a trapezoid, like we talked about yesterday, except upside down. So the small end would be at the bottom and the large end would be at the top. But I'm actually going to do something a little bit different, make it look a little bit more three-dimensional by being able to see into the bucket a little bit. Okay, so in order to do that, we have to start with the circle, but it's going to be a squashed circle. Okay, so at the top of the bucket, the opening is going to be an oval like this. Okay. And usually the buckets have a lip on them, and so we're going to draw another line, another curve, the same as this one from here to here, right underneath it like this. And then we're going to connect those two with straight lines. Then down at the bottom, usually the bucket is a little bit smaller at the bottom than it is at the top, so we are going to draw a smaller curve down here at the bottom like this. And we're going to connect those lines from the top, from this corner to this corner, and from this corner to this corner to make our pail, or our bucket. It looks like that. Okay? Now it usually has a handle to it, and so our handle is going to curve like it's going out of sight, onto the other side of the bucket where we can't see it. So I'm going to start from here, and I'm going to make almost a full circle. Well, we can do that while we're drawing with our pencil. And then we're going to make a handle that curves around like this. There we go. Now we have our sand bucket. Now the shovel is going to be made up of two squares that are connected by a line or by a really long rectangle. Okay? And we're not going to put it straight up and down. I want to put it at an angle because it's more interesting to look at it this way. So think about this. We've got a square for the handle. Mine is a bit more of a rectangle than it is a square. That's okay. And then down below, we're going to have another square for the digging part, for the bucket, I guess is what you'd call it. But we're not going to leave them as squares. We're going to round them on the edges. And we'll do that when we get into our detail. And then to connect them, we're going to make a long, you could do a long rectangle. Ooh. That doesn't look good at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the bottom here a little bit. That's the great thing about using pencil. You can always change it, okay? So at the top, this needs to be a handle. It needs to be open like this. And at the bottom, we're going to curve it, again, when we get to our pencil, or to our ink, which we'll do right now. All right, so for the ink, let's start with that handle anyway, because I don't like the way it looks right now. We're going to curve those corners like this all the way around. That way it won't hurt your hand if you were to use the whole thing. We're actually trying to use this bucket. And then I'm going to draw this a little bit thinner than what I did before. I think that's part of why I don't like it. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to curve those corners of the shovel. Okay, now this end of the shovel is actually sticking into the sand. So let's just go ahead and do like that. Okay, and since it is the shovel is curved a little bit, of course it has to be able to hold sand. We're going to put a line like that to show that it's indented a little. Okay, then let's just go ahead and do our bucket. Looks like this. If you want to leave that circle, you can do that. I'm going to go around it. And I don't like the way I did the handle on that side, so I'm going to change it a little bit. Straight lines down to the bottom and a curve at the bottom. And you see how when we create those curves, it makes it look more three-dimensional instead of just flat. Okay? Then we're going to wait until later to erase that, but hopefully I'll remember so that we can do that. Now we're going to draw a sailboat. The sailboat will be off in the distance, so we can make it small compared to our bucket and our shovel. And we're going to start with the mast. So it's going to go straight down like this. Just draw one straight line and then another one right next to it. Okay? At the bottom, of course, you're going to have the hull or the boat itself. We're going to use a straight line, and then we're going to go curve and curve, and then, of course, the wave for the water is going to look like that. Okay? Now, if it's a still day, of course, you don't need your sails, but it's a sailboat, so let's go ahead and draw a sailboat. Sails are only attached really at 2 points, up at the top and down here at the bottom. So these are really triangles, but they're curved triangles, okay? So we're going to do a curve here for one side, and a curve here for the other side, and then we're going to connect it like that, a curved triangle. Same thing with the smaller one that goes on the other side. A curve here that connects at the bottom, and a curve here, and then connect at the bottom. Now, I'm sure I'm not drawing this exactly right. If you are a sailor, I'm certain you could tell me different, but this is what my sailboat is going to look like. And then, of course, we want to have a little flag up at the top, just because it's cute. Okay? All right, now we're going to do the kite. Kite is really easy. It's a diamond shape. So we had squares on the handle of the shovel, and this is going to be similar to that, but it's going to be pointed, more pointed at the top and the bottom. Okay, so let's go ahead and on the angle, if your angle works better the other direction, if you're right-handed, you certainly can try it that way. We are going to draw the kite shape, traditional kite shape, like that, the diamond. And because it might have a little bit of wind in it, you can make the curve to the kite shape instead of just having it straight. And then you want to connect those points, point to point, and point to point, like that. And then, of course, the string is going to go down like this. And on the string, we can add a few ribbons, a couple more triangles to make it look pretty. And now this is something you could decorate any way you wanted to. You could add any designs. You could add polka dots or stripes, zigzags, whatever it is that you'd like to have on your kite. You could draw a shark on it. I think that would be very cool. Now let's go back and use our ink pen, okay? And straight line, straight down the mast for our sailboat. I'm gonna add in that flag real quick. I'm gonna add a little bit of distance between the flag and the sail, just because I think it will look better. I'm going to straighten out the bottom a little bit. Notice how my details sometimes look a little bit different than when I originally drew it. I think sometimes I do better with the details. Uh-oh. That's all right. This is practice. Then straight across for the hull and a curve going into the water. And then the waves. Okay? And then finally, for our kite, I could straighten up that curve line down here a little bit better. not have it so curved like that. And I know that I can make it go point to point. Now, a kite usually has some kind of pole on the back side. It's just not just a line, so I'm going to add 2 lines to it. And the kite string. And the little ribbons that we added on to it. Okay, now erase. That's what I forgot to do yesterday. Let's go ahead and erase. My paper seems to be smearing this a little bit. I hope yours isn't. But again, like we said, this is all practice, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to switch over to my other eraser and see if it does a little bit better. Yeah, the fiber in this paper is just kind of getting muddled when I use my other eraser. It's all trial and error, and it's all good fun. Okay? All right. So, we started with some very simple shapes up at the top for Monday. We did circles, things that had to do with circles. Then we added some triangular objects and a trapezoid, which I love our crab. I think he turned out really good. And then we got a little bit more complicated. The ovals and the curves for our bucket, the squares or rectangles that we used, and we actually curved off those corners so it looks more like a shovel. The curved triangles that make our sails for our sailboat, and then a diamond for our kite. Tomorrow we'll have just one more set, and then we'll put all of these together into one complete picture. Until then, enjoy.